Hello, everyone. Sorry I'm so late. Today I just kind of lost track of time. It was a little bit of a surprise. Oh, that's what that is. I'm trying to figure out what this little white thing is about. It's my notes. Hi, everyone. My name's Jared Bernard, and welcome to Robin's Hood. Yes, I lost track of time trying to get 2 or 3 things done, just like wrapped up before I started today. Really, it was the bottom right corner of my screen that was driving me nuts, and you can probably see it there. Now it'll probably drive you nuts. I don't know why it's doing that. I tried many things. It's just mad at me. Like I've said, technology tends to do. Anyway, I actually have to do one thing because I don't currently have my stream up, so I can't see your chat notes. I know that's a faux pas, but I tried. Oh, there we go. It says that. And now to get rid of the what do you call it? Sound. Okay, yes, I did all my things properly this time, except being a little late. Anyway, welcome to the show. Today I'm going to talk about something that's this is a conversation that it's being had, but it's not being had in its entirety or in a way that's understanding, how do you put it, that it's really connected. And it's because we're kind of like, how to put it, we're looking at both climate change and risk management as though they're an economic problem. And I think that's going to be one of the major... Oh, wait a minute. No, I did unmute myself even. Yeah. That's going to be one of the major things I'm going to try to show how, even though there is an economic element, that can't be the problem. Anyway, so first I'm going to start with risk assessment and risk management. And I want you guys to know, in all of these breakdowns and everything I'm going to explain today, these are the most basic things I could do. I wanted to boil it down, one, to things that in all forms of risk assessment, it's the thing that's most present in risk assessment. And so like in each field of industry and even personally, risk assessment is going to look a little bit different, right? There's a few things that like either a specific industry will have something that's specific about it, and they have to account for it, and so it's a part of their risk assessment, but not a part of all risk assessment. And same with your own personal relationship. But anyway, if we really boil down risk assessment overall, it breaks down to 2 things. The first one being frequency. How often does it happen? And the other one with frequency comes into the idea of like, it hasn't happened, but if it does, it only needs to happen once, right? But that leads into the second part, which is impact. So the second thing about risk assessment is impact. How big of an impact is it when it happens, right? So let's take about something simple, something we all experience, and that's hunger. Right, so how frequent is hunger? Well, so far science sort of says 3 times a day. There's a whole bunch of theories around that, but at least 3 times a day you should plan to be able to feed yourself. And then what's the impact if it doesn't? Well, it depends, but it can be pretty bad. And I think there's a wide acceptance of a lot of people who they'll skip breakfast, they'll skip lunch, they skip like 1 meal in a day sometimes, rarely dinner. That's kind of acceptable in accordance with other things. But anyway, so that gives us a basic idea of what is risk assessment. How do we assess what the risk is? How regularly will it happen, and how bad is it if it does happen? Right? And then the other one is, then the next step is risk management. Now, risk management looks pretty much at the cost of things. So first, it's what is the cost of being prepared versus what is the cost of not being prepared. So I think one of the things I want to really point out too is cost can't be strictly financial. Even though that's the thing we tally first, because it's the most evident, it's one of the easiest things to tally, and 2, it's probably in society one of the most impactful. Like there are situations where an economy could collapse and one person could die, and the economy collapsing would be radically more impactful to society than that one person dying. Anyway, so here we're looking at what is the cost of being prepared versus the cost of not being prepared. So if the impact, if what is happening, isn't as bad as preparing for it, so like it costs more to prepare for what's happening, well, then we're probably just going to let what's happening keep happening because it's not impacting us that bad. So that's how we manage our risk. So those are the bare bones of risk assessment and management. Now, I wanted to cover these because they kind of tie into it, but they aren't the absolute of it all. And also, I wanted to talk about it because of how much climate change is talked about as an economic problem. And I guess I didn't talk about how climate change, or maybe I did mention that climate change is going to be pretty much the main premise of all this. But I want to diffuse the idea that it's not financially viable to invest in climate change. Anyway, so the next thing I want to talk about is the thing known as the error of outcomes. And so it's usually tied to, or I think it's commonly even tied to, the error of two outcomes. So there's a type 1 error and a type 2 error. The type 1 error is the idea that we say whatever the theory is or whatever the idea is, we say it's not happening. So like with climate change, the type 1 error of climate change would be to deny climate change. So we're always denying the idea in the first one. And this is usually considered the more risky of the ideas. So we reject that climate change is happening, and then we act as though we reject it. And then the other one, which is the type 2 error, is though we accept the idea. So we accept the idea, and then we act as though it is happening. Now, these happen because we're not certain, right? Like, even though science has got a general, like there's a larger agreement on saying that climate change is happening than not, we haven't got a complete agreement. And so when we don't absolutely know based on the physics around us, this is what we apply. We apply the error of two outcomes. So we look at the first outcome, which is if we reject climate change. So let's analyze that. What happens if we reject climate change and we keep the path? Now I have to change my notepad. Well, there's pretty much, it's going to be pretty much business as normal, right? Things that have been happening will continue to happen. So you're going to see the negative impacts that we have from using non-renewable resources, the environmental impacts, the impacts on the animals that live in the environments around us, and the overall negative impact on us because of pollution and so on. And again, remembering that we're saying that climate change isn't happening, but there is evidence of pollution and the impact on our health. And so the idea is that it's not total, like it's not cataclysmic. We're not going to destroy all life, like that's what we're saying. But it's still, there is evidence that using these non-renewable resources and going or continuing on the path we have is going to have negative impacts on the environment. And they're manageable ones, but they're still negative, right? So that's still there. And then the other one is that these resources are going to run out. It's the definition of non-renewable, right? It's just not a plan. It's literally not sustainable. So it's not a plan for the future. It's a plan for right now. And so that's a certainty. We can, it may not be in our lifetimes or our kids' lifetimes or in our children's lifetimes, but when something is non-renewable, it is by definition going to run out. So then there's that. And then what is it? The cost of energy. As those things run out, as we run out of resources, the cost of energy will go up. It will cost more. And I mean, if I were someone who were strictly business and not thinking about the livelihood of people and just thinking about the benefit of profit, that would be good for me, right? That would be good for someone who is financially invested in energy to have the cost of energy go up. And I guess the, what do you call it? What's it? Oh, right. So we have to also think about what happens when these resources run out. Well, there's going to be kind of one of two results, right? We're either going to have an complete economic crash, like it'll be radical. And I couldn't tell you what the repercussions are if we are unprepared for running out of these resources. I feel like there are better authors and theorists out there, but none of it's good, right? That's a bad thing. The other option is that in the process of running out, we start to prepare for it to run out, and we start looking into other energy sources. Now, what's going to happen is very likely the companies that are already invested in the non-renewable resources, they're going to be the ones that are capitalizing because they have the most money to invest into the future things, into the future resources. So they stay in power, and they stay investing in a way where they're utilizing resources and the interest of money than the interest of humanity. And so I don't know. I feel like it's a very much a formula for the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, and it creates a time gap where people can plan to capitalize on something that could look more oppressive than positive when it should, to my mind, just be positive. Oh, I guess, and then there's the positive element where there's jobs, right? So that's I think the best thing that happens if we keep on this thing. There will be jobs, and they've shown that. And what's surprising to me is how often it's used as an argument to stay on the path, right? Because how is it the other element doesn't do jobs? Anyway, so now that's the type 1 hypothesis. The idea that we are rejecting that climate change is happening. We say climate change isn't happening. Well, these are all the results, even if climate change isn't happening. Right now, if climate change is happening, well, we don't plan for it. We all know it's just awful. Everything dies. Planet Earth hopefully regurgitates us over time, but you know, everything dies. We're just, maybe cockroaches live. Don't know. Yeah. All right. So that's type 1. Now type 2. This is the idea that we go under the idea that it is happening. So we act as though climate change is occurring. So if we act as though climate change is occurring, and then the first thing we'd have to do is research and develop renewable resources. That in itself is jobs, isn't it? Like, I don't know how you do research and you develop something that's sustainable and renewable without employing a bunch of new people or a bunch of people. So that's the first thing. So we're going to research and develop sustainable renewable energy. We instantly lower the impact we have on the environment and the inhabitants of that environment. Right? We go from having a negative impact to having a positive impact. We start producing more life-sustaining environments than negative or life-depleting environments. And as energy becomes renewable and becomes more prevalent, it's just going to cost less. It'll take a little time. There will probably be it gets worse before it gets better, period, as there usually is with humanity. But really, it just goes down. There's no way the theory of inflation and deflation doesn't, it just applies. The more renewable power you have, the less it will cost everyone. And again, if you're invested in energy, this isn't beneficial for you, right? So they're probably, I mean, this is getting into hard conspiracy theory, but I wouldn't doubt that there are people right now trying to figure out an equation that'll makes it more financially beneficial to be in this environment, And then anyway, the last one is jobs. There will be jobs. You will get jobs if we act as if there is climate change happening. So in each one of these elements, where we act where climate change isn't happening, we get to see the positive and negative effects of our behavior. And by looking at it, I don't know how you could ever argue that acting as though climate change isn't happening would be better for society or humanity. And then the other thing is that if we're wrong, right? Like, what if you're wrong? Because even the smartest people in the world have been wrong. And they've been wrong about big things and little things. So I'm going to just call out Donald Trump here, right? Like, do you think he's one of the smartest people in the world? How often do you think he's wrong? I mean, if you just go by his speeches alone, and I can't trust this guy to be telling me that climate change isn't real. I feel like that doesn't make sense. He's been wrong way too many times to lean on something this big. And then when we just look at the facts, right? If we just look at the facts, if we act as though climate change is happening, things just start getting better. In psychology, they call it an anchor point. It's the place at which if we apply the most pressure, the most change happens. So if we start acting as though climate change is occurring, it only gets better. There's the negative impacts. I want to know. Let me know. I may have absolutely missed something in this breakdown of what occurs in either of these scenarios. Maybe there's something I completely don't know. And if I've oversimplified this, I want to know. I'm curious what someone would have to say to tell me, challenge this idea overall. Because in terms of how risk assessment looks, if we go into the cost of being prepared versus the cost of not being prepared, well, that's kind of why I broke it down, right? The cost of not being prepared or the cost of acting like climate change isn't happening seems huge. Seems huge. Even if it isn't happening, the cost is still bigger in our current behavior than if we change our behavior. And I think that's just evident. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, I think that's my spiel. I think I believe this is a pretty clear case as to why we should, as an planet, be acting as though climate change is happening, even though it isn't. And I think it's just because we would start seeing positive repercussions in our society and in our environment as a whole. And yeah, that's that. And I think people who have, I want to hear what the reasons would be to not. Like, what are some things I missed in the idea about acting as though climate change is happening? What are the negative impacts? And I really need it to be something that isn't about economics, because if it's not financially viable, then eventually it doesn't matter, right? Like the finances can't outweigh the livelihood. That's where we've failed as a society. We've, in my opinion anyway, we've created a situation where it's more economically viable for death than for life, and we have that going all over the place. And it's not financially viable to be producing life and promoting life and having life positive ideologies. It costs too much, and I challenge people to challenge me on that. Anyway, that's probably another video. This is where I'd open up the floor if there are any questions. Anybody's got any ideas, any things we want to talk about on these topics. I guess I just have to wait now. All right, seems like we gotta close. That's good. Good. I'll give it a quick refresh just to be sure, but I feel like that's that. Yeah, good stuff. Right, everyone. Well, thanks for everyone who came and checked out today's live stream. I'm going to post this on YouTube. I'll be going live pretty shortly, probably around 6 o'clock with, what is it, Donut County? It's just this game. It's fun. I'm having a good time. I'm not sure how long, what is it? I don't know how long of a playability it has, but it's great. Oh, we got a question or a comment. It's more financially viable to those invested in the current system. Yeah, exactly, right? Like that's kind of where, and this is where the semantics really come into play when we hear people talk about the economic viability and the risk of the issue, right? Like it's, for them to say it's not happening, so we shouldn't address it. It's just ignorant, and I think, and again, it's also ignorant of the impact of our current behavior, and it does really just benefit them. And I mean, even like I kind of want to stay away from the conspiracy theory stuff, because like as much as I believe that, it's hard to prove that, right? I mean, it's hard-ish, but it becomes a blaming game, whereas ideally I'm not trying to hold people accountable as much as I'm just trying to create a new positive behavior, right? Like although there will be a time for accountability, I believe right now we don't have time, and we need everybody. Like I think that, and I think for things like this, like when it comes to, there's a whole bunch of other topics that's not going to be the same thing, but when it comes to climate change, like we need people who are rich to be taking huge radical action, right? And so to say that they benefit from the system and therefore they're not choosing to do it, I don't want to exclude them from this conversation in that way, because and I mean, I don't know how I'd get this message to people who are rich and have the economic ability to impact society on that level, but I hope it does one day. I hope somebody out there sees and hears this idea and has questions and we can talk about it, or has what do you call it, options for solution. I have another one, the chainsaw sound. That's interesting. One of the problems, IMO, is that death equals short-term game, whereas investing in life takes time, energy, and effort. Absolutely. I think that's one of the things where economics is, as its self-sustained system, it's sort of a flawed system, and Yeah, absolutely. So the second statement is war is absolutely more profitable. And I mean, was it George Orwell? He outlined it. It's basic. Oh, hey man, how you doing? How you doing, Adam? Thanks for coming by the stream. But like George Orwell, 1984, it's like it's basic math almost. As long as there is constant expenditure, there is constant development, right? So things are constantly being made, and war is a constant expenditure. You can constantly be throwing money at war, and so you can also constantly be making for it, right? That is productivity in terms of the economy and capitalism. And so capitalism and war can have a really close relationship, and it's up to society to ensure that it doesn't. I mean, I don't know that I'm a capitalist, but what is it? I'm pretty sure I'm not. But at the same time, I don't know that I've ever lived in true capitalism. But that's also not part of this video. But yeah, absolutely, war is absolutely more profitable, and the death is a short-term game. So when somebody dies, there's what is it? Even the there's you know what? I think to go into that topic, I need to do some more research to make it more clear and more concise. But yeah, that's thanks for everybody for those comments, because that's like this is where I run into myself, or run into one of the issues is that I'm surrounded by people who agree with me. And it's my own fault. I don't often have enough patience to challenge, and sometimes I'm not even necessarily smart enough. I can't figure out how to explain it, and I believe I found a way to believe it, but I haven't found a way to explain it in every case, and that's partially my own shortcoming. Anyway, let's see. Can't we find ways to consistently produce in peace? I believe so. I think that there's a reality to that. I think I in my video about value, I talked about how there is there's a baseline, like the idea of the bottom line being economic and not human, or not life. That's where the issue really falls, and I think we need to create a boundary of things that are non-financially they can't be impacted by economics. They are the principle by which economics are founded, right? So the idea that the way you take care of your society, the way you take care of the people in your society, and the way, you help other societies take care of their people would be the way you value your money. That could be the thing. I don't know. I'm just spitballing, but creating things that creating boundaries where what's the term? Quality of life, where the quality of life is of utmost value, and money isn't. And that's our. I think I don't personally know another way, and I don't even know that would work. It's just a theory. It's just an idea. I don't know. I know that there's so many complicated elements to economics since we moved off of the gold system that it's an algorithm that's running itself and we're adhering to, right? And we're not we have less control over the economy than it does of itself. And then again, those few people that have radical amounts of money, because those are the people who really can impact the economy, right? They get to see how their money moves things. Anyway, we got another one. Like valuing the earth as a primary need for our survival. Exactly, right? Like it is. It just is. And so if that came down to the bottom, that was the bottom line. I think that's the thing, that everything should be revolving around whether or not it's good for the environment, and it will perpetuate life. Like the idea that supply and demand is what dictates value is. We talked about this the other day. Humanity regularly lacks the ability to be its own advocate, right? We fall on the side of hindsight so regularly that the idea that we have the foresight to predict when something will be bad for us or bad for our environment is just we have no evidence of that. The amount of the population that has the capacity to be a good advocate for themselves is radically smaller than those who do not. And so when you have the majority of people that don't know how to act as though or act in a way that is both necessarily beneficial for themselves and necessarily beneficial for their environment, and then you have freedom of speech, freedom of individuality. And I'm not suggesting we take any of these away. It's just this. It's a perfect storm. It's a recipe for setting ourselves up for failure. And so that's why we need to create a system that I don't know exactly how to look, but a system that suggests people to invest in life-based ideas as opposed to just yourself. And that's one of the things, like when you think about the economy, today's system is a self-based system, and it's why it's succeeded, because we in our evolutionary development. Oh, you know what? I'm getting so far off topic. I'm just rambling, and I think I need to keep going on this topic. This would have to go into probably a new a video of the idea. I think there's another video of the video based on the idea of valuing the earth as a primary need of our survival, and being the baseline of our economic system. That could be an entirely separate video, which I would need to do an entirely whole other level of research on to be able to speak remotely competently on, because at this point a little bit of a hip flying happened, and yeah. Anyway, I don't know. This is what this is going to be like a lot. I think I'm gonna just ramble on, and I'll have my little bit of notes, my little notes here, and then go. Anyway, we got another one. From the Chainsaw Sound. Should there be more rewards and incentives applied to doing the right thing? Apparently more so than we already have in place. The survival of the species. Oh yeah, you're touching on something like this is a really sensitive topic for a lot of people, and people have this idea of they shouldn't work for somebody else's reward, and I don't get it. I don't get it. Why? At what point would I not want to be doing something for somebody else that helps them? I just don't get it. But anyway, absolutely. Here, let me take a sip of water. Incentive-based psychology is like, so there's a thing that we do for children that we don't do for adults. It baffles me, right? And it's still semi-questioned in education and in childcare, but in every case, when you use positive reinforcement and you use reward-based systems, you see more positive behavior. Always. When you use punitive systems, you see negative behavior. It's almost actually, unless there's a neurological defect or deficit. Sorry, and if there's a neurological deficit, then you can occasionally see differences, but on average, like in the 97 percentile, when we use positive reinforcement and positive incentives, we get the behavior we're looking for. If we use negative reinforcement, which actually doesn't mean, that's a harder thing to explain, timeouts and stuff like that, though you do get the behavior you want, you do not get the intrinsic investment. So the individual, the child, is not going to be as invested in the situation. And so yeah, this goes into a whole deep topic for me, because I think in terms of criminality and things like that, we have a huge thing to take on, and the idea that we profit from criminality right now. There is a whole economic business based around jails, and I don't know, it's less common. I don't think the same in Canada, but in the States that's a thing, and it's just economic incentive needs to be heavily monitored and decided at where it's valuable. But anyway, that's another topic. So the next statement from the Chainsaw Sound was, like, more you do for the environment, the lower your taxes. I mean, that could be something. I don't know how to apply it as a whole. I think at this point, it's a theory, and the theory needs to lead with the idea of just creating a barrier between economics and life supporting systems, and that all things that if you would be denied would cost you your life, they can't have a cost. If you don't get this thing means you die. It should be free everywhere in the world. That's and I think that is that should be a premise for a civilized society. Without that, that's not civilized, in my opinion. So like I don't know if we have any civilized societies fully. I mean that's just lack of my own knowledge. I think there are some that lean to those things. But anyway. So yeah, exactly. Like the chainsaw sound next statement was, we literally all benefit. Yeah, exactly, we do. And that's I don't know how that's not evident, but I again we are a bit of a, what do they call it, a soundboard here, or echo chamber. So like we all kind of agree, and because we all agree, we're going to say reinforcing statements. That's going to be sort of my next goal, is to get the show more get it into the right wing environment, because I want to see what are the arguments I don't know. That's going to be, and I think that's going to be valuable to all of us, right? And I want this to be a place where we can have healthy discord, and if the conversations are ever going sideways, well, you know, we'll take action. Okay, so from Heather Bernard, would that be instead of taxing or punishing those who damage to the planet, or in addition to? Oh gosh, right? Like this is where we're getting into the application, and I'm not gonna say I have answers in whole, right? Like this isn't something I think I made the show yesterday. I don't necessarily know what I'm talking about. I'm just taking things smarter people have taught me and showing you how I think they apply. And then after that, I think there needs to be an assessment, right? I don't know if this is where this happens. What's funny is after doing like 3 or 4 shows, I've discovered, I'm like, I think I have a couple thesis statements to write, or like some papers to write now, because these are big ideas, and you need to write them down for people to really be able to absorb them, and to be able to move them back and forth and make something out of them. And maybe that'll happen with these conversations. We'll meet the people who either know how to do that or want to do that. And I would absolutely enjoy being part of that conversation. I don't know if I'm the right person for that job, but I'm at the very least trying to get that conversation started. Yeah. I don't know. Those were all really great comments and interesting questions. I appreciate all of them. I think it's you may have led me down a rabbit hole of another video. Thanks there, chainsaw sound, which is pretty valuable. I need as many video ideas as I can get. I mean, I've always had thought as a long rabbit hole, so I'll find something for sure. But anyway, I mean, I already have many ideas written down. But anyway, how many times can I say anyway before moving on? Right. Let's see. I think that's that. I think I've gone through the questions. I've outlined my point. And yeah, I'd really be interested in seeing somebody show me what I don't know. I'm super interested. I'd like to hear, because the ideas of what they don't know can't hurt them is radically wrong. Radically wrong. But yeah, thanks again for checking us out. I'm going to be moving on to Donut County probably by 6:30 at the latest. Yeah, you can check that out on my Twitch channel. I'll be posting this on YouTube, probably on Twitter at some point too, all those things. So if you're ever interested, or you want anybody else to take a look, please let them know, because the more people that see these things and get involved, the bigger this will grow. And that's the whole hopes. All right, man. Yeah, thanks for checking out. Yeah, for sure. Take care. Yeah, so please like and share this video, and tell your friends, and take a look at the website down below, because that's where you can register for the monies. And that's what I'm really, one of the things I'm big about is I'm super excited to give away money, and hopefully we get there one day soon. All right, thanks for checking this out, and I will talk to you guys, well, shortly.